We need our mud boots.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's going to think about getting back here right now. It's just too soft.
Not our problem.
So basically right in here would be fine.
Okay.
And I'd put it like right here.
Oh, maybe. Good enough to at least tell him.
Yeah.
Where we want it.
This spot was placement for our propane tank, which is now in place. Let's go back in time a little bit for a story about HVAC.
So we decided today that it's too cold outside to do a porch session, although we would...
Correction. You decided it's too cold. I'm willing to bear the cold, and I just want to go on record saying that, but apparently it's too windy for the camera.
I was going to say, the cold maybe not so much, but cameras and straight 30-mile-per-hour wind into the microphone don't work so well.
Right.
Yeah, we're sitting close to probably where a couch or something might be, looking back at the kitchen area. So I think this will work. We got all of our light coming in from the windows here. So today we wanted to talk about 2022's motto, which is, Kelsey?
We don't know what we don't know.
I don't know what you don't know. So a couple things have happened in the last couple weeks. I want to preface this all by saying all of this stuff is what I would still consider very much first world problems. So
absolutely.
We are not going to get on here and just do a whole bunch of complaining because nobody wants to listen to that, and that's not going to be positive for anybody.
But we would be remiss if we just let you think everything has been sunshine and roses. The last few weeks have been very challenging. So we thought we'd share some of those with you.
This is a specific, obviously unique sort of build. And so when we started to look at HVAC, we had already done some plumbing work, we had already done some electrical work, and the HVAC came in and they were kind of looking around and saying, well, man, there's a lot of stuff done. We're going to have to think about how this gets designed. And because you don't have a basement or a crawl space or anything like that to move a lot of the ductwork through, they had to think about that. And we're going to go over in a second and talk about what had to be done and why it was slightly disappointing. But that would be one thing I would say at the beginning. If you are thinking about building this, or maybe even with a normal home too, I would assume you need to think about the HVAC stuff at the beginning, how it gets designed, where does it get placed, because there's so much stuff that controls really the whole house, and that means ductwork goes all these different places, and if you don't have it planned out, you're going to probably have to sort of punt like we did here.
Right. We had our electrician lined up. We found the plumber. Everybody got started working, and it was kind of like we hadn't secured HVAC. This day and age, it's hard to get in contact with people. It's hard to get people all lined up at the right time to do everything. So that was the challenge that we ran into, and unfortunately that challenge kind of kicked us in the butt because we really should have started with HVAC and then gone with our other contractors after that in succession of work.
Yep. So this is what has happened with these rooms down here. So we're looking at the master bathroom right now. This one next to it is a master closet, and we'll walk down. There's a laundry room right there. So specifically these three rooms, when they came through and did the design, Paul was definitely thinking that the back spot, so back here, that was going to have a bulkhead put in place so that we could run the ductwork. But we didn't anticipate that there was going to be so much ductwork going through here, and that it was going to be so wide that it had to have a return come through here up into that section, and so you lost this whole ceiling in terms of that needing to run through there, and so we had to build these down to 8 feet. So that was the disappointment, because we lost a 9-foot ceiling in that room, in the master closet, and in the laundry room right here. None of this stuff, again, is the end of the world by any means, but we designed the house so that it was going to have 9-foot ceilings throughout. And specifically down here, we designed it because these rooms are slightly on the smaller side. And so we thought, well, the ceiling's going to be raised up and that will help them look bigger than they are. But didn't end up happening that way. All of this stuff is framed out. Paul has it all done. So it's ready for the drywall, but that all had to run through there. So when we had the HVAC designer here, he walked through, looked at everything, and said, okay, I think this needs to go here. We got it all sorted out. Had to do some shifting into the mechanical room. Paul had to move the door over as far as it could possibly go. That was the third time he'd moved that door.
Poor Paul.
So he didn't really want to do it again, but he did. we'll show you that because it needed more space than we anticipated that it would for our furnace. And so when he was talking about the front here, he was like, okay, Kelsey's canning kitchen needs a vent out of there, so we'll have to do that. We'll have to vent a couple of bathrooms. And just me not being very experienced and knowing what a lot of this stuff meant, I was looking at it like the plumbing vent where everything runs together, it goes out the top of the building. No big issue. So a few things over here, I was like, that's fine.
Plus, we were under the assumption that the canning kitchen would exhaust out into the soffit of the porch. So still exterior, but it would be hidden in the soffit.
They get started on all of the work, and they are here. One day we show up, and he says, oh, good, the homeowners are here. We're going to talk about where these go out over here, and we're thinking to ourselves, well, I don't know exactly what that means, but a couple of them are coming out, I think, so okay. And later that day, you know, usually I'm following along with the build like pretty closely here, but that day I happened to be filming my last lawn video, and I was working down at the plots, and Kelsey was working in the shipping container, and I came up at the end of the day, and I looked at the front of the building, and I drove back down there, and I said, there's literally 9 or 10 holes in the front of the building. And she was like,
me being who I am, I'm like, oh, I'm sure it's fine. Like, you're overreacting.
She's like,
it's probably
Ryan
fine.
is always overreacting about things, but
I'll just need to go up there, take a look, and calm him down. It'll be fine.
so she walked up there, came up there with me, took a look at the building, and was like, yeah, tears. This is like,
Yeah, I sort of kind of crumpled on the front lawn.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little shocking. You have this beautiful facade. We've worked so hard to have an exterior that we love, and then you see it was just there's a lot of holes in the front of the house.
And so we called the people who had designed and everything and said, you know, we just weren't under, I think there was just a miscommunication on where this was all going, how much of it was going to be going out on this side, and what can we do about it. So they showed up the next morning with kind of one of the managers of the company, and we walked around and talked about some things and said, mainly, like, why can we not go out the roof with a lot of things? And so that's another thing that we wanted to mention, specifically with the Barndominium. A lot of these companies automatically right away say, well, we're not going through a metal roof. Like, we're not doing anything with that. We don't feel comfortable with that.
Concern for future leaks and things like that, being responsible for something like that.
And so we talked with Paul about that, and he said, not an issue on my end. I can go up there, get everything sealed. And so we talked to them, and they said, well, if you're okay with it, then we'll go ahead and do that. But then in the meantime, they looked out the west side of the building where we were anticipating most of the stuff was going to be come out in terms of vents and all that, and said, well, actually, because this is a storage room upstairs, I think we could go out here if you guys are okay with it and losing just a couple of little spots in there where we can run some duct work. That's where we'll actually place everything, and we don't have to go out the roof. And so we agreed to that. And we will be keeping 3 or 4 vents on the front. Kelsey's canning kitchen obviously had to have a pretty good range hood in there to get all that moisture out of there. And then there's a few other vents that had to come out there. But those are tucked underneath the porch, which we're okay with. The other ones that were up on the ridge and over on the side here, no. So those have to be fixed. Paul will be fixing just a couple of new sheets of metal going into those, and all is well that ends well, I guess. But
to add to that, we weren't able to go into the soffit with the canning exhaust either, because it does end up coinciding, the joist that it would run would coincide with a post. So it is set outside the porch, but they're all pretty well hidden, camouflaged at this point. So now that we're fixing the ones that are out in no man's land and up on the second floor, it's going to be fine.
What do you say, Kels? About half of our life resides in here right now?
Yeah.
Which we haven't been in here for a while, but...
No. Which most people would say, well, then that means that you don't need it. But you people have to remember that I'm not really living a life right now.
What are we living?
We are working a life right now.
And working we have been.
Today I wanted to explain a couple things that we've been working on. I'm so sorry for the brief little break here between videos. It has been extremely hectic around here, and I have just not had time to get my camera out, do all the filming, and do most of the work that we were working on. We've been working on a ton of insulation work. Actually, we spent all day Thanksgiving doing insulation work. It was about 6 days straight of insulation, and we wanted to do most of the interior walls. The product that we used here was rock wool, some various different things. I used some of the Safe and Sound up in my studio. Down in some of the other areas, we just used the regular Comfort Bat. So that product is really easy to use, really easy to work with. We were very happy with the results from it. So Kelsey's dad also came down and helped us with the ceiling. We wanted to insulate between floors just to make sure that we were cutting down on noise as much as we possibly can. And then out on the exterior wall, we originally were going to spray foam this, but we decided that we probably didn't really need to go to the expense of doing the spray foam. This product is an R21 going into that wall, and it's a similar product to rock wool, but it's made by Owens Corning. This product also pretty easy to work with. You can cut it. It's a lot easier than the typical fiberglass stuff that you might have been used to in the past. So the only tricky part about this wall was that we had a 19-foot ceiling up in our staircase there that we had to do, and I had to be up on a ladder on that part. So if you're afraid of heights, definitely would not have been for you in that portion. So then, like I said, we're doing some interesting things with my studio to try to cut down on noise as much as possible, not only from noise coming out of the studio, depending on what I'm working on recording or whatever, but also Kelsey's office is not far away on the other side, so just depending on what she's working on or TV or whatever she's doing, trying to make sure that doesn't bleed too much into what I'm working on, just with audio or video or whatever. So then after that, we got all the insulation done, the drywall started, and we had Des Moines Wall Systems doing this drywall. Chris there has been very easy to work with and has really helped me a lot on figuring out my studio stuff and give me some advice on the sound part. They do a whole lot of stuff in the Des Moines area, a lot of commercial properties where sound is also something that has to be figured out. So he helped me a lot with that, and these guys did a fantastic job getting this all done. They make really quick work of this. They make it look easy, but it's definitely a hard job, so we appreciated their work on this. After the drywall was done, we wanted to turn on our heat so that they could get going on the taping and the mudding and all that stuff, but we did not have our blow-in insulation done up in the attic yet, so we needed to do that. So Kelsey and I also wanted to put some sound barrier up there as far as one layer over top of my studio and that area, but we decided just to do the whole thing because it wasn't a whole lot of extra cost. Now, when you look at an area like this, you go up there and you think, oh, it's not that bad, it's not that huge of an area, it probably shouldn't take too long, there's not a lot of stuff to go around. But once you start doing the work, you realize it's more than you think, and that's with a lot of projects. So we also decided up there to use these 10 mats. When you put 30-some holes in the ceiling up there for recessed lights, for smoke detectors, speakers, whatever needs to go up in the ceiling, you're putting a lot of holes in that barrier between your ceiling and the attic. So we wanted to go the extra mile on this, and we used these 10 mats. They are made of a similar material like a rock wool, but we spray foamed around these, sealed them down over top of those light openings and whatever other openings were up there, just to seal that off from sound and also make sure that it's as energy efficient as possible as well. All right, so if any of you were wondering what this door up here was going to be for, why it sort of goes to nowhere right now, you're about to find out. And then today, when I got here, the blow-in was going in. We were going to think about originally doing this ourselves, but we are past the point of wanting to do more insulation work right now after all of that. And it wasn't too much of an extra cost at this point to have the professionals come in and just get it done quickly. That way we can turn on our heat. We don't have to wait on the drywall part that can get going. And so that's what we decided to do. Another thing that we wanted to talk about was that front part where all these vents needed to go. All of that metal got fixed. There were 3 or 4 holes that needed to be fixed with metal, but Paul and the crew got that done. And so now we're back to just a couple of vents here right outside of the porch. If you're straight on the building, you can see them, but honestly, coming up the driveway, they are pretty much hidden here on this view, tucked behind the porch.
So good?
Paul today is currently hoping to get the in-floor heat system going, or it should be between today or tomorrow. And then tomorrow we are hoping to have our water heater. We're doing a tankless water heater, so that's going to hopefully be installed tomorrow as well. Now we are focusing on just the last couple days here before we are moving out here. So I'm going to explain that once we get out here. I'm going to show you what else is done in the shop. I'll show you the exterior lights, which I have not seen yet. I'm very excited about the exterior lighting. I'm a light nerd, or at least I want to be a light nerd, we'll put it that way. So I'm going to be doing some research and things on some nice cool landscape lighting and all that stuff. And up in the porch here, we also have, I think it's 8 recessed lights, and I put in some colored ones that can be changed colors and can be dimmed and do whatever you want to do with them, so that we can do holiday festive stuff with those too. So I haven't been able to see these yet. Those are not quite wired up, but the shop stuff is ready to go. So in the next episode, I'll show you all that stuff, and you'll be seeing what we're going to do for our living situation here for the next couple weeks, or however long it takes to get into the main house portion. Appreciate you following along with this journey. We've been on a lot more exciting stuff to come. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.